to this day I'm pitching all the time because it's like you don't know who doesn't know you. Like there are
Mm-hmm,
so many
mm-hmm.
people, and when you think that you have gone to all of the possible clients that you could ever work with, that's you haven't even scratched the surface.
Alanna is a lettering artist and designer behind AGF Design Studio. She's got a beautiful style that's created work for big name clients like Adobe, American Greetings, and the Los Angeles Times. She also licenses her work to companies and illustrated a book that was released last August, Love Letters, an Alphabet of Affirmations. I am so excited to connect with Alanna and learn more about her journey. Hi, Alanna. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're definitely going to dig in a little deeper, but to start, can you kind of give us a brief overview of how you got into this lettering artist world?
Oh yeah, geez. I feel like I've been at it for a while now, but I think the first seed was probably planted in college. I took a typography course, and that's where I learned about Jessica Hish and her work.
Mm,
And this was like at the height of her daily drop cap. It was like a personal project that she had started, and it was going crazy on like Tumblr, throwback. Um, and I was obsessed. I was just like, we're learning, the rules of typography because I got my degree in graphic design. So it's like you're learning the rules and the structures and all this stuff, and you're dealing a lot with typefaces. But it really opened this world to like, but you could also just hand illustrate everything, and this is what that could look like. So that's really what sparked my interest in lettering, and then I fell into calligraphy and all this stuff. So from that moment, I feel like I was kind of hooked.
oh my goodness. So, when you left college, did you start working within graphic design at first, or did you immediately start trying out lettering and kind of build from there? Give me a little like career progression kind of thing.
Yeah, so I would say that I got my start slow. Professionally, I had actually started as a receptionist, which wasn't, my ultimate goal, but hey, it helped me
A job is a
cover
job,
a
man.
job is a job. It helped me cover my bills. It helped me start paying back my student loans once I started, figuring things out. And I was able to eventually secure a job in as a graphic designer, working in-house for a company based in the city. So I gave myself about a year working as a receptionist. And in that year, because I was so deprived, I guess, creatively, like I didn't have that fuel as my career force. So that's when I actually dove deeper into lettering and, calligraphy as like a side sort of, way of having some sort of creative outlet. So I was always at the little reception desk, I'm answering the phone, but if I have a little downtime, I'm pulling out my markers and my brush pens and stuff and
Love
just
that.
practicing, and started my little lettering Instagram at that time as well. So yeah.
That's amazing. All right. So this is okay. This is good. I got a lot of questions. Well, first of all, I would say like okay, so then once you went into the graphic design, because I found this myself actually, once you went into the graphic design job, did that take away from your like side hustle or like your lettering because you were using that
Yeah.
creative brain in a different way?
Yeah, it was it was definitely that way for me. It sort of halted things oddly enough because then it's like you said, all of my creative energy and all of that was used as my day job and my full-time employment. So it wasn't exactly like I was using lettering or anything like that, but creativity, in a sense. But then yeah, I had kind of I don't want to say completely abandoned, but it definitely slowed down the amount that I had done, lettering and calligraphy like on the side. I guess I was just the
Yeah.
fuels weren't as full.
No, I mean, I felt that same way because so I worked for 10 years in New York City as well. And my second job was at a home textile company, and I was
Mm,
doing surface pattern textiles, but a lot of it wasn't my own original art. I was like
mm,
reworking other art, and it was very traditional. It wasn't my style. So I was like, on the side, I was like trying to do a stationery company, like, stationery
mhm,
designs and stuff like that. But then I got a new job working for Gap Kids, and I got to do really cute patterns and really fun
oh,
stuff. And it was all mostly my designs. And then I was like totally abandoned the stationery thing because I was
Yeah.
like using all my creative energy. Like I wasn't in my home textile job. So I found that
Yeah.
same thing. And I think that's something interesting for other artists to know. It's like having that non-creative job to pay the bills is a good thing if you're trying to build something that is your own, because you do have a little bit more creative energy for it and more motivation because you're trying to get away from the thing that maybe isn't so interesting to you in the day to day.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of weird how that happens, right? It's just like I finally got like the creative job in terms of like, okay, I'm putting my degree rather to good use, so to speak. And then it's like what left do I have for myself,
Yeah.
outside of just, what my bosses tell me to do.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm there for you. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So then talk to me about what the next steps were. So you worked in this graphic design job. How was that the only job you had before you went into freelance, or did you have a couple of these jobs? Like kind of where did the transition start to making the leap into being a full-time letterer?
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting when I first got my graphic design job. I think I was just so excited. I was just like, yes, okay, this is where it really starts. And I think that even though I had obviously a strong drive and passion to, create lettering and all these things, I still had that, I guess, sort of traditional mindset of I'm going to work at a company and work my way up level by level and eventually end up as an art director, probably. That's usually the
Yeah,
highest
the
level if you're
path.
not
Yeah.
like some sort of vice president or something. So it's just like, I kind of get, how this will probably work, which is so funny because up until that point, I had already deviated to some degree. It's just like your path is already not linear, but sure, tell yourself that you're in control. So, I'm just working there. I think I was there for almost 5 years and I'd been promoted slowly, work your way up from junior designer. And I eventually found myself in a managerial position. And it was sort of interesting again. It's like as you ascend, you're being less creative because
Yes,
your role.
exactly. The path is like less and
Yes.
less creativity for
Yes, I'm
sure.
just like, how am I getting even less creative as I'm ascending in the role? It was very backwards and I didn't enjoy it as much. So I think it was really at the time of the pandemic when I was like, okay, I was, I didn't get furloughed or anything, which was really fortunate for me, but I really had to sit down with myself and be like, okay, everything's getting shaken up and ask yourself if you could do anything creatively, professionally, what would it be? And the answer for a long time had been lettering, but I was just too timid, and too afraid to just go for it.
Yeah,
But
it's a big leap.
yeah, it was. But I had found a freelance course with Martina Floor, and it just felt like divine timing, so to speak. And I was just like, okay, this might be something. So I gave a very ample notice, and yeah, I kicked off in January of 2021. Yeah.
Wow. It's a big leap. And it's I guess you know, how did you set yourself up for that? Because
Hmm.
I think for me, like I also, well, I decided to go freelance because we were moving away from New York City. And I knew that moving down to Raleigh, North Carolina, there wasn't going to be very many companies, if any, that did
Hmm.
textile surface designs. So I was like, I'll go freelance while I'm still in New York, and hopefully I can get some clients that are in New York. If I need to go into the office, I can do that briefly, and then hopefully we can do this remote work thing. Now, this was in 2013 when remote work wasn't so, people did it obviously,
Yeah.
but it wasn't as now it's a lot more accepted, especially after the pandemic. But like I was kind of naive because I was like, I've got a great resume. This is not going to be a problem. I'll just find a couple more clients and then I'm freelance and then we're good. And it was my naivete that made me make that leap because I didn't think it was going to be that hard.
Hmm.
How about you? What made you? I mean, you knew what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You were ready, but like as far as like setting yourself up financially or just like maybe having some clients, how did you kind of make the transition?
Yeah. So I think for me, my anchor was that taking a freelance course because I knew that I had no idea what I was doing. And I was just like, okay, what better kind of course to take than from a seasoned lettering artist. So I'm just like, it felt even more of a perfect fit because it's like, it's not just a general freelance course. So that really gave me the structure and I guess a bit of felt like I had a bit of foundation
Mm.
to sort of, start building up my portfolio and start attracting clients. But I definitely did not have any clients before I kicked things off. And I wasn't, everyone has their list of dream clients, I suppose, that they sort of just have like in a little notes app probably. But I wasn't in the position right then and there to start doing outreach and stuff until I sort of took that course for a couple of months. And then in terms of like financial security, very important for me. So I made sure that I, squirreled away some months and months of expenses and stuff just in case, you kick things
Yeah,
off
no,
and,
for sure.
maybe it's crickets. So I definitely wasn't going to try and set myself up for like, and my dreams will just carry me.
Yeah,
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 just like I
I
have to be
know.
practical here. So, and I
Yeah.
really thought that I'd give myself like maybe 6 months. And I was like, yeah, if nothing shakes out in 6 months, I'll just go back to being a graphic designer and, maybe I could do this on the side, like, and then I'd have like an actual structure. Like you could very well be a part-time freelancer. Like you don't
Yeah,
have to be a full-timer. So I'm like, I could always give it another shot if this doesn't go forward, but I wanted to really, put my best foot forward and give all of my time, not have anything, no other, professional obligations holding me
right.
back or stuff like that. So
I
that's
love
kind
that.
of how I went forward with it.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, I think I felt the same way too. I was like, look, I can always figure something out. If I have to work at Starbucks, then fine. Like if whatever needs to happen, I mean, had savings too, but it's just like, if you want to do it, you make it happen. So
Yeah.
I love that you put that together. Um, so I just have so many questions.
No, it's
I'm
fine.
like, from what you're saying, I have questions. Plus, I have these questions that before I heard your story. All right, so I guess let's talk about, now or throughout, let's say, the last couple years. Would you say that the bulk of your income has come from licensing, from commission work, or from some other type of source? Potentially like have you done some graphic design work? Like where would you say the bulk of your income comes from?
Yeah, so I would say that it varies year to year, but in terms of the last couple of years, I'd say that it has been kind of split between graphic design contracts. So like I'll do like short-term production design sprints or with certain like maybe like stationery companies or people who just need people who have a graphic design background, know how to use InDesign and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then like lettering commissions as well. So I'd say like those have kind of been sharing the load. Sometimes it ebbs and flows depending on just whatever
Yeah, right, of
whatever the
course.
demand is at the time. But graphic design has definitely been a robust part of my income
Yeah.
streams still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I wish, like, it's a part of me, as much as, no offense to graphic designers, but what people always, a lot of people come into surface design, and I mean, I do some lettering, but I'm nowhere near what you can do. But
Oh.
like a lot of people come into the like sort of decorative side of things from graphic design, and I'm always like, welcome to the fun side. But but like I do wish that I had some like better graphic design skills, because I know that income can be a lot more stable, and a lot more clients understand what graphic design is and the need for graphic design, rather than a pattern or lettering or an illustration can make your product more exciting.
Mhm.
So having that skill set is so important. Um, Art licensing is so one thing that you didn't mention was, as being a big part of your split, is art licensing. And I'm not particularly surprised, because I also make money from art licensing, and it's not much.
Okay.
It's not a big part of my portion either. But it is a big topic in like the surface pattern and the art for products world.
Mhm.
How has your experience been with licensing versus that freelance work, that commission work? Do you have an agent that helps you get licensing deals? Talk to me about like some of your licensing deals that you have had, and how they came about a little bit.
Yeah, so when I first started out, was very aware of the importance of having, diversified income streams. So art licensing was definitely on my list because I'm like, ooh, a way to reuse art that I only have to make
Sounds
like
like
one time.
awesome.
I'm like, this
Yeah.
is like a dream, right? So I that was like my first foray, I guess, into thinking about it's just like you've already created this artwork and it could have all these applications, just like pitch yourself. So that's when I started pitching myself. I started pitching myself right from the beginning. And actually one of my first clients was a like an e-card company. So that was pretty cool because I was like, ooh, it felt like a little win for myself early on, and gave me a little bit of a boost. So that was cool. And I didn't have to create anything from scratch. I just like already had a bunch of lettering that wasn't doing anything, quote unquote,
Right.
wasn't earning me any money. So I was just like, hey, put this to good use. So yeah, it's just been a lot of pitching myself, really. I don't have an agent. I haven't had any kind of representation for art licensing or any part of my freelance business, which has been tedious. I will say it's a lot of work, and I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, pitching yourself, it's like, it's a grind, but it's been really nice, and it's something that I'm hoping to grow more and more. But yeah, I've definitely had some success with a lot of mostly like licensing my work for cards. Yeah, has been
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk just a little bit about the pitching being a grind thing, because that's
Yeah.
something that I think, so many students that I talk to are like, they want an agent because
Mm.
to take away that pain point of pitching yourself. And even an agent, I think I've been saying lately, it's an agent's market right now. Like there's
Oh.
more artists who want agents than there are agents who are looking for new artists necessarily.
Hmm.
So, and I think that you are in a better position to get an agent if you've already had some success. So like just get
Hmm.
out there and start pitching, right? That's my advice.
Right.
But can you talk a little bit about like sort of maybe either whether it's your pitching process or just
Hmm.
kind of like how you have dealt with either hearing nothing or getting rejection or whatever, because I know that that's such a pain point for people, especially getting their work out there for the first time.
Hmm.
It feels like a big hurdle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's so interesting. I feel like pitching has just been a reality of my work as a freelancer. It's just like, well, if you're starting from I have no clients, how do you get to the next step? And, it's just like, well, introducing yourself to, potential clients is a great first step, even though it can be intimidating. And I definitely, identify with that because even now, if I'm like pitching to a client that I'm like really interested in and really excited about, I kind of get myself a little hyped up in my head, and I might freak myself out a little bit too much. It's just like it's just an email, it's fine.
Yes, yes.
And I like to think of it as you're sort of doing the work for them a little bit because they I'd like to think that's just like, okay, I'm looking for someone. So if you introduce yourself and they happen to already be in the search for a lettering artist, you've saved them a lot of time.
Yes,
Like
yes.
this
That's
is
such a
a,
great way to reframe it.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like this is a relationship, it's like we are at service, and they're, helping us as well because they're doing the commissioning and stuff, but it's like this is a relationship, it's two parts. So I like to sort of if I do get freaked out, I try to reframe it where it's like I'm I'm doing some work for them too and I'm
Yeah,
helping them
no, I think
out.
that's such a valid thing because so many people feel like, oh, I'm bothering them, I'm begging
Yeah.
them for work, but it's like, no, you're showing up with like you're doing their job for them. Like imagine just having what you need show up in your inbox. It's like, ooh, perfect. And like obviously not everything is what they need. They get a lot of stuff in their inbox that isn't what they
Yes.
need, but you never know. And so I love that that is such a gem, right? Like that's such an important
Yeah.
reframe, I think, for people. Um, I still, gosh, I have like again so many questions,
No,
but
it's fine.
let's talk about the board book that you've illustrated because it's called An Alphabet of Affirmations,
Hmm.
and it debuted last year. And I am so curious because that's something, I've never illustrated a book or anything, but I have lots of friends who have done book illustrations. But I am curious how that project came about. And, did you have the pitch? Did someone approach you? Talk to me about how that came to be.
Yeah, no, it segues perfectly because all it was a pitch. It was a pitch to the
Mm.
publisher, and I'd never heard of the publisher. The publisher was Little B Books, and I was just, going on a little trend shopping spree, just sort of looking out and seeing what's out there, I'm trying to identify, the work that I'm interested, the work that I already do out in the market, right? So yeah, I was just looking at some bookshelves, flipping over books, looking at, who are the art directors and stuff. And I came across theirs and they seemed like a really good fit because I'm like, oh, I can see that they have utilized lettering in some way. It looks like they have custom type in use, maybe on their covers or on their interiors. So it just came about as, I'm going to pitch myself. And it was funny because earlier you had said, how do you deal with, possibly not hearing back or, an initial rejection? The pitch wasn't necessarily successful in the beginning. The art director had said, "Oh, thank you so much. Like, we'll keep you on file." It sort of
Yeah,
feels like the
yeah.
standard response sometimes. It's like, "Oh, thank you for sharing your work. We'll keep you on file." And then a few days later, he said, "Oh, we have actually a project that might be a really good fit for you. I'll send you the details shortly." And then the details were for love letters. So,
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. And the fact
yeah.
that it was only a few days later versus
Yeah.
like 6 months later, like this is why I like, I'm always like, you got to follow up because people
Yeah.
might forget if it's 6 months later, but luckily you were still at the top of their mind.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you didn't even necessarily come with a like idea of I want to do affirmations. You just were like, I can letter if you need me.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, you can, so by all means, but that's awesome. So, one, I think I saw in whether it was a blog post or something like that, that you worked with an art director throughout putting together that book. How does that differ from being, your own art director for your portfolio and things like that? I love the balance of having freelance work where someone tells me what to do and gives me a brief
Yeah.
versus creating like whatever I feel like this week because I'm doing work for my portfolio. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way in terms of, I really enjoy working with art directors. It's like once you're a freelancer, at least especially if you're a solo freelancer like me, it's just like I don't have any coworkers to necessarily bounce ideas off of. I don't have people, in my immediate space to sort of pick their brains. And I felt like working with my art director, her name is Steph Stillwell, at Little Beat. It was so fun because we would hop on a Zoom call and just talk through mood boards, ideas. And I feel like she was really good at incorporating, my own personal style and, things that I'm already drawn to. And I've already like had experiences where I'm like mixing a lot of styles in my work in terms of like mixing a lot of lettering together. So the project just lended itself so well to the work that I was already doing. So I felt like it was a really good balance between her guiding me and then me kind of being able to take the reins a little bit as well. But that opposed to being self-initiated in perhaps a personal project or something, it can be a little intimidating. If you feel like maybe you just have a very loose idea and you're just like, I don't know what to do with this idea. I've had personal projects sort of sit on the shelf for a while until I feel a spark to pick it up again. So I do enjoy being directed definitely
Yeah.
because it's like it's more clear. But I'm in the middle of a few personal projects that I'm really excited about. So I've kind of been feeling more of the battery in my back to pick them up. So it sort of ebbs and flows, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think having that balance can be really great because it can definitely be a lot to try to like what isn't working about something's not working. I'm not happy
Yeah.
with it. And whether it's the art director saying, actually it's working, you could just tweak this one little part, but it looks good, or they're saying like, yeah, I think it might be the layout. And you don't always agree with what they're saying
Hmm.
necessarily, right? But at the same time, sort of giving up that control and letting, for me, there are some artists who are so, you know, truly, I don't know, more creative, or I don't know what the reason is, but some people are just, really invested in what they create and they don't
Hmm.
want that. And that's when maybe licensing or creating their own work is perfect for them. But for me,
Hmm.
as someone who's freelance for such a long time, I'm fine with people telling me like, change it. And that comes back to the pitching too. It's like I think if you aren't quite as personally invested
Mm,
in, how the work is used or like potentially changed, I think that you can go farther because you have that flexibility. There's something to be said for having a vision and sticking to it, but
mhm.
I think a little bit of flexibility helps you not take it as personal when you get those rejections. And it also helps to, move with, as you were saying about trend shopping and stuff, move with like the trends and what is currently marketable. So I love that. Um, so I can imagine that doing a whole book, even if it's a board book, which maybe had how many spreads? Like 10, 12, 18. Was it the
Yeah.
ABCs? Wait, yes, it was the ABCs. So
Yeah, it was the
26.
yeah.
That's a big project. That's probably, that's definitely bigger than something that I've probably tackled. All my projects are a little bit more small scale. So did you have any like how did you kind of work through that long term? How long was kind of like the deadline and like do you had any mindset tricks to like keep you on on topic because it can be hard to really stay focused on something that large scale.
No, yeah, it was definitely my first time tackling such a long-term project for sure. I think, how long did it take? I think it took a year and a half to do
Ooh.
all of the artwork. So what helped was having little like mini deadlines. So it's just like, okay, by this point, we want to have very rough sketches. By this point, we want to have this, and then, adding the color and details and all this stuff. And also, I think it was interesting because at some like kind of earlyish on, the creative direction changed a bit.
Mm.
So I had started working on stuff, but then we ended up scrapping it. So then we sort of went in this new direction, and that's kind of what steered us forward, like past maybe like 3 or 4 months, like in the very beginning. So definitely setting like mini deadlines was helpful, and my art director helped me with that. But either way, I'm very deadline driven. Like, give me a date, give me a specific, so that I can
Hmm.
sort of plan my life around it because while you're working on a long-term project, life still happens. So it's like I'm still, taking on other work and all this other stuff. So just trying to figure out, how it fits into my schedule. I'll dedicate maybe a couple of hours, here and there, just to get some work out to make sure that I don't fall behind on my deadlines and stuff. So that really helped me because, like I said, I need something to anchor me in time and place. So I know it's just like, okay, sketches are due soon. Like, here you go. So yeah, that's how my brain works.
I love that. Um, so, in addition to your lettering client work, you have a robust YouTube channel, which is, well, no, I had seen your work definitely online on like Instagram, which you had mentioned like when you were a receptionist, you were doing I'm changing directions here. You
No, it's okay.
mentioned when you were a receptionist that's when you started your Instagram.
Mhm.
And I'm curious about that because that was, like what a smart move. I would never like I mean, I started my Instagram because I had a business and I needed to like get it out in the world, but like you started it because you were enjoying and just wanted to share. Or I don't know, what kind of motivated you to start that Instagram because that was very, that was a smart move for sure.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, it was just a part of the my creative outlet. And I think I was also just motivated by other artists that I saw doing that. Gosh, when was it? It was about 2015, I guess. And so I deleted all of my photos from college and all of the unrelated to art stuff.
Right, right.
And I started my grid fresh. And yeah, I think the first thing that I posted was like the word start or something, like all symbolic and stuff in like this brush
I
brush
love that.
script, with one of those Tombow brush pens or whatever. And it was just a way, I think it was just a way to keep me motivated, to keep me sharing and just keep exploring. Like I had no idea where any of that was going to go. I didn't think that I would get paid one day to do anything like that, but I genuinely enjoyed it, and it was like my way of decompressing. So everyone talks about their, my 5 to 9 after my 9 to 5, but it really was at the time. It was just something I would dedicate my time to, and I was just like super obsessed with filters at the time. I feel like
I
filters
mean,
were
hey,
like,
look, at the beginning of Instagram, that was
yeah,
the thing for
yeah,
sure.
everything was driven by filters. I'm just like, ooh, that looks kind of cool, and I would even take some of my stuff and like tweak it on Photoshop a little bit and do all this other stuff. So I'm like, ooh, this kind of looks interesting or gives me a different effect. So like combining the analog with the digital and just sort of those early explorations were just so, they're just so pure because it's just like I don't know what I'm doing, just being driven by, what I want to do. So
I think that's
yeah,
so
that was my fuel at the time.
yeah, that's so important. I think, a lot of artists struggle with enthusiasm for social media. And I mean,
Mhm.
now it's a whole different game and like whatever. You might not be as enthusiastic now, and I certainly am not, but but like, just having that remembering that spark and that fun and that just like, it's not about followers or whatever. It's just about sharing and enjoying it and using it as its own creative tool, right?
Mhm.
So that's great. So kind of bringing it back to YouTube,
Mhm.
um, you offer lots of tips on lettering and different design apps like Fresco, Photoshop, Procreate. Um, for my people who are always asking tech programs, do
Yeah.
you have a favorite? Can you nail it down? Or is it, where you're at on your favorite?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm definitely a super Fresco lover. Fresco and Illustrator are my
Yeah.
two ones that I love. And I guess Photoshop too, because Fresco works with Photoshop so well. So those are like my three mains. But if I'm on my iPad, it's Fresco all day.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm the same as if I had to pick favorites. I I started with Procreate, but
Yeah.
then, eventually got into Fresco once. I mean, it didn't launch until later anyways, but
Yeah.
also just, the being able to move between the apps and have that like vector pre-work done with
hmm
Fresco can be really great. So I love that. How do you determine which to use for particular projects, or do you have like well, I start with sketches here and I do that. Like, do you have a workflow that you always use, or do you sometimes do one and sometimes do another?
So I would say, especially lately, I've been trying to go back to my roots and start analog with sketches.
Nice.
It just feels better now. I think
Until you start double tapping your
I
undo.
know until you forget, it's just like, oh, okay, certain
I
things
I
aren't
will
gonna work.
double tap my sketchbook and then just be like, oh my God, get over
Yep, yep. I'm going crazy. But I think I'm sort of not veering away from optimization, but I think I was so obsessed with like how efficient can I make my process to like slowing things down a little bit. So
it.
going back to sketching analog and not losing that because that's a skill in of itself. It's like I don't want to forget, the way that feels. And then I'll like photograph whatever my little sketch is and import that into Fresco and then do a digital sketch on top of that and further refine it. Now, if I'm thinking about whether or not to like use Fresco or like Illustrator, maybe, I guess it maybe depends on like application and like, okay, what is the purpose of this and how versatile do I need this to be? Probably. But if it's something that I'm just like posting on Instagram, I'll probably stick to Fresco, but I really do love vectorizing my work. Like
Mm.
even if I don't quote unquote need to, I really love doing it anyway. And I get the super versatility of the vector scale anyway, so it's never a bad thing, but it does take longer if I decide to vectorize. So it's a trade-off.
Yeah, yeah, I do love my I have been doing lettering. I have not had like I've done a few workshops, but not done any like real formal deep dive lettering training. And I'll never be like a hand letterer in the sense that like you and some of my other, people that I follow are, but I do a lot of lettering throughout my like for gift bags and for greeting cards and things like that. And, over the years, just through sheer amount of doing it, I
hmm
mean, certainly gotten better. And I think my hand is not as smooth as like a vector can be, right? So when
hmm
I'm doing these curves and these things, it's like all right, I know which direction I want it to be. And even with like the smoothing tool of like Fresco or something like that, it's
Mhm.
still like, okay, but I can really perfect this if I get into Illustrator and vectorize it. So
Yeah.
there's that control that you can make it really perfect. Well, imperfectly perfect. So
Right.
so jumping around a little bit, but what
Mhm.
motivated you to start that YouTube channel? Have you found it helpful for marketing your actual design services, or how has that kind of added to your plate?
Yeah. It's so funny. I actually started my YouTube just because I needed some place to host a video. I was like,
Fair
I
enough.
needed to share a video with someone. I don't even remember for what, but I was just like, oh, I'll just upload it. And then from there, I was just like, oh, I guess I could keep this going. So, it was pretty early on. Did I start? I think it was 2022. So I think I was like a full year into my freelance practice. And then I was just like, oh, I guess I could do this too. Because that's like the beauty of being a full-time freelancer. It's just like, okay, I can choose how to use all of my time. So I was just like, okay, I could dedicate a little bit of time to this. And Adobe was at the time they were hosting like this free boot camp for how to edit in Adobe Premiere Pro.
Mm,
So I took that little boot camp, and that's been my editing software ever since. So yeah, it was really cool. I felt like, I was learning a skill. I thought it was cool that I was just like, okay, like, being able to film yourself and, and get the little lighting tweaks or whatever. And of course, nothing's going to be perfect, but I thought I was sort of cultivating quite a few skills in, putting time into a YouTube channel. So it felt like a good use of my time. And then eventually it was a good place to, share, my portfolio, share affiliate links for related products that I'm talking about in a video, promoting my Domestika course, stuff like that. So it felt like it all fit into the ecosystem of all the things that I was trying to do anyway. And it just felt like another vehicle and channel for promoting that stuff. So
yeah, yeah, I love that. Um, well, the one thing that I haven't asked you about is some of those big clients like Adobe and Los Angeles Times and American Greetings and stuff like that.
yeah.
Have were most of those projects come through pitching, or have some come through some of your marketing channels, like if they
Mhm.
found you on Instagram or YouTube or whatever? Or have you gotten it all through pitching? I'm curious.
Yeah, so in the beginning, American Greetings was my first ever client, as crazy as that might sound. And they came to me, and I think it's because one of their designers found me on Instagram because I had left a comment on her on her page, congratulating her because she had just started working there at the time. So I was just like, "Oh, congratulations on your new job!" And I didn't think anything of it. I was just, congratulating, fellow female
Yeah,
creative, and just, it was cool. And then I just kind of went about my life. And then a few days later, I get a brief from them. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that is crazy.
that is.
So they haven't all been like just coming to me like that. That was kind of more luck or whatever, but or right place, right time. But I would say it's a mixture of that. Definitely pitching. To this day, I'm pitching. I'm pitching all the time because it's like you don't know who doesn't know you. Like there are
Mm-hmm,
so many
mm-hmm.
people, and when you think that you have gone to all of the possible clients that you could ever work with, that's you haven't even scratched the surface.
Yes,
Especially
yes.
when now I'm like 4.5 years in, I'm going back to my old list of people who I've pitched like from years ago. And I'm like, do they even still work there? Like people could have assumed their positions and like it could be a completely new person. So it's like refresh, those contacts, over time. Cause yeah, you might have gotten like a nice, like, yeah, we'll keep them on file. But like once that person leaves, like the next person
That
might not.
file's gone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unless
no,
like
you're
they probably
right.
took all their contacts with them. So just being on top of that and just being aware that it's just like you never know, who doesn't know you yet. So just, keep putting yourself out there, really.
That's such valuable advice. And like, how do you stay motivated? Like, do you have a system to stay motivated to just like keep doing that? Because that's the thing I see so many people really, I mean, I struggle with myself. It's like,
Yeah.
keeping that motivation up. I mean, like, especially if you're not hearing back
Mm,
or, you know, it's not leading to um, contracts right off the bat, you
hmm.
know, as it usually doesn't.
Yeah.
Um, how do you like keep that energy to keep doing it?
Oh my God, it's so hard.
Okay, good.
But I have
But
been,
I mean, like, I'm
no,
glad I'm not.
you're not alone. No one is alone in saying like, and when I get told no or I don't hear back and I get ghosted, even after following up maybe a few times and people still don't reply, it's like, and I still stay perfectly motivated the whole time. Like that is in no way the reality, at least
Okay.
for me. So, I would say it's a combination of things, and I just sort of take what I need depending on how deeply I'm spiraling about like I'll never work again and all of this was a sham. So I like I think I've borrowed this from a bunch of different artists who are, further along in their careers or they've, had different experiences. I love having a hype folder. People will
Mm,
screenshot, emails of people who have said nice things about their work and just like remember who you are and remember that people think you're awesome. You are awesome. So like
yeah.
open that folder. I have it on my desktop and I just sort of read through the things from time to time and be like, remember, you are awesome. You
Yes,
are amazing.
yes. We need that. We need
Yeah.
that. And those, yeah, and wins like, and I've done
Yeah.
this, and I
Hmm.
got have this, and you know, I've worked with however many clients or whatever.
Yeah. We're so easy to write ourselves off, I feel like even
Mhm.
after you've worked with whoever, like there's always more. It's just
Of
like
course.
the thing that just sort of is just like, oh, but I haven't done this, even though I've done this, I haven't done this. But it's just like don't write yourself off. Remember, it's just like you are amazing. And then I have a little joy jar on nearby my desk, and I just sort of write down, if a good thing happened that day, I'm just like this amazing thing that I wasn't expecting happened and that was cool. And I'll just throw it in that jar and I'll just shuffle it around and swirl my hand in there and pull one out to just sort of remember it's just like good things do happen. You just don't know when. So a good thing can happen again. So just, keep going.
I love that. Okay, I love this. That's good because you know, I mean, I do always tell people like write down your wins, but
Hmm.
like that's so tangible. Like the second it or when it happens that day,
Hmm.
like write it on a piece of paper and put it in rather
Hmm.
than like, I mean, I have like a, you know, a Google Doc or whatever, but
Hmm.
it's not the same as that tangible, like I can just grab it right out of my thing. I love that, Joy.
Yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, well, I'm imagine that can help because yeah, definitely it is hard to stay motivated in the long term, right? It's like you
Yes.
can get like hyped up to do it for, okay, I'm going to send out this many or I'm going to get through this, but then yeah, it's just like to keep doing it. And but that is part of the process. And that's something
Hmm.
that, you know, I think it's important for newer artists to understand. It's like this is just how you get work and this is
Hmm.
just, you know, it's time tested and you know
Yeah.
there aren't any shortcuts to introducing yourself and showing off your work to people who could hire you. So,
Yeah, it's been really helpful to also hear from other artists. It's just like hearing someone else's struggles, like being aware that it's like no matter how large you perceive some artist's career or accomplishments to be, they have likely gone through a lot of these trials and tribulations throughout their career in one way or another. So it's like no one is impervious to these sort of, rejections or, shortfalls or whatever. So just remember that, we're all going through it at some point.
yes,
So.
I think so. I feel like, you know, if you listen to like podcasts or see
Mhm.
interviews with like actors and stuff, and you always hear these like, oh, you know, I did so many whatever bad commercials and a million
Yeah.
auditions and whatever. And I feel like we hear actors and maybe even musicians' stories more than we hear like visual artist stories.
Hmm.
But you know, it's the same kind of thing. It's there's like so much rejection and so much of a muscle needed to kind of power through doing things over and over again until they eventually hit.
Yes.
That you know we have to remember that we're kind of in that industry as well. Because I hear you know like stand-up comedians, they always say like, oh, I worked for like 10 years before I got my first special or whatever, doing these like nights at whatever, and you're just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. But it's like am I that far from, I mean, I'm not standing up on stage every night, but at the same time, it's, I'm still sending all those emails. So yeah, it's something to remember for people trying to get into the freelance world.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I have this book called, I think it's called The Road to Success is Paved with Failure. And it
Mm.
has a lot of those stories about like actors and actresses and stuff. We're just like, oh, did you know Tina Fey was like, a lowly, whatever, normal person in a very
Used
normal
to be
9 to 5 job.
normal.
Yeah, right before she was the Tina Fey. So it's just like, and also saying like their ages too. It's just like, and they were X age, still trying to get their career together because I feel like that's another benchmark that we hold ourselves
Yes.
to is like by this age I need to be doing this, and if I'm not, then I'm behind already. I'm like I let go of that because I'm like please, I can't be beholden to that too.
Yeah, right. There's too much. Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much. That was so much fun. I definitely could talk to you. I mean, I feel like I could talk to you for a very long time, but we will wrap it up here. I will send people. Is there anything in particular that, you want to send people to? Because I'll definitely put your website and your YouTube channel, but is there anything in particular that you want people to know about?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're interested in, having a book of affirmations be part of your life, be a part of your kids' life, if expecting parents, it's great for all ages, really. It's great for everyone. So if, buy Love Letters, an alphabet of affirmations. It's an amazing work. I'm so proud of it. And then if you're interested in learning lettering in Adobe Fresco, I have my Domestika course. So definitely check that out.
Awesome. Okay, well, I will put links for all that in the description, you guys. Thank you again, Alanna. It's been awesome.
Thank you, Elizabeth. This has been awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Enjoying the content? Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more tips, tutorials, and interviews to level up your surface pattern design journey.